Hey guys, it's Scott again, Good Book Explorer, coming to you again from Kansas. I'm going to tell you a quick story. We went up to Dodge City today and went into a cafe there, a coffee shop. What was the name of it, Janine? Redbeard, a coffee shop. And as I went in, I was placed my order and was talking to the coffee maker, the barista there. And we got talking about where we were from and what we did. And I was telling her about Good Book Explorer and what we did. And she wanted a card, which of course I have run out in my case. I'm going to have to load it tonight. But she wanted the address, so I wrote that down. We just had a nice conversation about exploring God's Word and world. And then as I went to sit down and drink my coffee, I noticed a guy sitting at a table, I don't know, maybe two away from us, had his Bible open and he's reading his Bible. And then I got up and noticed they had a chalkboard there with praises and prayer requests on it. So obviously I had stepped into a Christian establishment, and that's kind of exciting. And we've done that a lot this trip. We've just run into people who are in ministry and who want to talk about the Lord, and it's exciting to know. Sometimes we feel like we're alone, but we're not. There's Christians all over this United States, and as we travel along, we have an opportunity to run into them, and I'm proud of that. Sorry it took so long, but just a quick story I wanted to share with you. Now, we are in James chapter 3. Clicking on now. But James, I tell you, he doesn't stop giving us warnings. And in chapter 3, he kind of begins, he's talking about our tongue again and watching our speech. But he begins by kind of saying, look, be careful if you're going to teach. Be wary if you're going to teach. Just because of that, your tongue, the words that you use, you got to be careful that you state things correctly, or that you don't hurt someone's feelings as you teach, but mostly just that you get things across the best way you can and correctly. So he gives that warning, and then he begins to talk about the tongue, and he uses a couple of illustrations about that. And it's not only just our speech. Our speech is an important part of this, and I don't want to minimize this at all. But it's not always just our words. It's the things that go along with our words. We've had great luck with the parks that we've been in, the state parks for the most part. But one didn't go as well as the others. It was a state park in Texas, and we went in. The girl was just a little frazzled, I think, and was having a bad day, I'm hoping. And but anyway, we were checking in and was trying to tell her everything correct way and in the correct order that she wanted it. But it was the week of spring break, and our kids were coming out with some grandkids, and we said, oh, there'll be another car coming in later. And so she just goes, rolls her eyes, and, I'll have to go back in the computer and correct that. And I went, oh ma'am, I'm sorry. I we didn't realize you would have to do it. But the rolling of the eyes and the expression. So it's not always just the words we use. It's how we communicate even those words. It's the things we do with our body, with our face. Janine tells me all the time that I would not be a good actor because I can't hide what's going on. Whatever emotion I have is going to come out my face, and sometimes that isn't very good at all. So James is talking here, and he uses an example. The first one he says is talking about a bit, but what he's doing is comparing a tongue, this small thing in our body, and how it controls us. And he talks about the bit in the horse's mouth and how we can lead that horse around by that bit. Just this one tiny bit in its mouth, and we can just lead it around. And then he gets bigger and talks about how a ship is controlled by that rudder in the back. That one small rudder dictates which way the ship goes. And so he's saying this little small thing that we do is talk and use our mouths and communicate. We can really do some damage, and we can really direct people in the wrong way. Can we really cause some damage? Because the next thing he talks about is just how a little fire, just a little fire in the forest and how it can just, engulf the whole forest. And how many times have we read that where someone just, maybe threw out a cigarette butt or left a campfire unattended, and then all of a sudden you've got this huge forest fire. So he's comparing these three things to our tongue and the way we speak. But that really reveals, because the Bible tells us that, what's ever in us is going to come out in the way we speak. You can tell. And how many times have we started a forest fire just with that little spark coming out of our tongue, just that word that we wish we could get back sometimes, or maybe we don't. Maybe we just spat out something in anger or in vengefulness or whatever, and then it just wreaks havoc on this life, and it just snowballs around. You got to be careful. I know in my life I've said things that I immediately wanted back, and then I've said things that later that I wanted back. But of course you can't. Once they're out, you can't retrieve them. So James is telling us to be very careful with that tongue, that thing that we got to be careful that it doesn't lead us around and lead us into places we don't really, want to go. I love to talk, but sometimes I have to kind of take a fast from talking. For me, it works where I just make a conscious decision and say, everyone doesn't have to have my opinion today, this week, whatever. And it doesn't mean I don't say anything, but it does mean that I listen a lot more than I talk. And that's necessary for me, that I have to do that to kind of get control of my tongue. And I've learned that through the years, that's something I just have to do. I just have to say, whoa, monitor that. And that may be something that would work for you, or you may have another way that you monitor that. There may be something in you that you can stop where you are. Jen and I have this thing that when it's getting tense or whatever, one of us can say, hey, whoa, let's do this later, or let's talk about this later, or whatever. And a lot of times that'll just stop it when we know that we don't need to get into it. So we just need to stop, and maybe we'll get back to it later. Maybe we won't. Maybe it'll just resolve itself. But James is really, he's already talked about the tongue once, and he's doing it again. So I think it's of importance to us. And I know in your own life how damaging the tongue can be. I bet each one of you have an instance that comes up in your mind just as we're talking here today about something that you said that you wished you hadn't have, or something that was said to you that you remember, years and years later. I'm going to end it with a personal story. I went to see a first cousin a couple of years ago, and we were out talking, and he told a story about something our grandfather had done 60 years previous, something that he had said to him on a riverbank, and that he remembered to that day. And I thought, wow, I bet my granddad never thought that something he would say just in that moment would be remembered for almost a lifetime. But it happens. The tongue is something else, and it has to be tamed. It has to be controlled. So whatever way we do that, we need to do that, because James says, let us know in no uncertain terms that this is the hardest thing for us to do, but it's also the best thing that we can do is control our tongue. Hey guys, we're out here exploring God's Word and world. Thank you for listening today, and we'll talk soon some more about chapter 3. Thanks.